Today, we're here with Fred Herring, the architect for this beautiful home here. So, what inspired you in this particular design, and how does it reflect, your philosophy on architecture?
This is a house on a very difficult site. So, I mean, in important ways, my design preferences, or yours if you were my client and I was doing an individual house for you, kind of takes second place to the ground. I mean, this very steep lot tells me I must stage the house in this particular way. And what I'm aimed at doing is using that, what seems to be a restriction, as a way to make a more interesting space. I mean, I want you to feel like, wow, this is my house when you walk in the door or when you go out the door in the morning to go to work. The feeling of the place is, at least for me, more important than any particular kind of organization. I mean, it's important to make sure you haven't made the house really awkward to live in, but other than not making large mistakes, the general sensation of what the space feels like and how you feel in it is what's important to me.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the way this site is probably one of the hardest to build.
It's a very. I mean, it was even more difficult than the topography I started with turned out to be an error. So that set of stairs didn't exist in my original drawings.
I see. So things had to kind of change as you went.
They had to evolve because the circumstances were a little different than I anticipated.
Yeah. That's I mean, amazing in terms of the views and how you have the 3 decks, overlooking San Bernardino Mountains. It's just amazing.
It's a nice spot too. I mean, it's difficult, but it's got its advantages too.
It's a very unique sized lot too to work with.
That's right.
To actually build this kind of space is just pretty amazing. I would say. Yeah, and so like, how would you balance, the functionality and the aesthetic beauty? I mean, it's so, your designs are so unique and so, so custom. Yeah.
I don't think they're really a conflict in the sense that, like I say, I think one of the big functions of a house is to be aesthetic and make you feel wonderful about the space you're in.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, to be a kind of inspiring space is really what I'm hoping for every time.
Yeah, because I see how you created the light well, and you have so much light in it. It just brings in the light into this space where you wouldn't have managed.
Almost all houses from the past, from my point of view, don't have enough windows. I mean, we live in such a benign climate that if we had deep snow and low temperatures in the winter, it would be a little restrictive. It is. We aren't restricted like that at all.
Definitely. We're here in Brisbane, California, which is a very small rural, town, but it's very tight knit. About 4,700 people in this location, but a very great community, for this too, and so close to being in San Francisco. It just feels like when I walked into this first building and I saw, just walked in, it was just how accommodating this home and it felt to you, and just the space and the openness that really made it work. What do you want people to feel? Like, I believe you kind of explained that too as well when you walk into it.
Well, I mean, there is that sort of inspired, expansive feeling when you're in it. You walk into a room that's a wonderful room, whether it's in a, Baroque chapel or a small building in rural Japan or here, anywhere. There's a kind of commonality from things that seem very different, but the general experience is an awful lot alike.
Yeah, a lot alike.
And I hope the work that I do makes you feel that way when you walk in.
For sure.
And when you live there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had the happy experience of having lots of people that were not the first owner that I designed or built a house for, but the third or the fourth owner. And then I would meet them in passing and they would say, oh, I lived at such and such a house. And it was, which is, of course, exactly what I want to hear.
And they come back to you for more and more designs.
That's true, right. Pretty much all my work is referrals.
All your work is referrals and they come back to all custom. So, today we also have about 39 of his model homes that he's designed here today in this property. And so I come from an architectural background, so I kind of really loved how, what he's done over the 50 years. Stanford graduated in 1969. Tell me a little bit about your history and what came about. You mentioned how in 1970 you got your first permit right after.
You got spring of 1970.
Spring of 1970s, yeah.
Right.
And we have one of the designs right over there, the first home that he built.
That's
This is the one. Let me pull that over too.
Right.
So it's a pretty amazing design. I mean, I feel like a lot of his principle and his design is kind of kept within the function of just the custom, the curvilinear designs kind of really started from somewhere.
From the beginning. You're right.
Yeah.
Although at that time I wasn't familiar with the fabrication of laminated curved beams, so everything is a straight stick in that.
Yeah, it's like
so it's a rising curving ridge in segments.
Yeah.
I can certainly remember walking up that ridge with a row of rafters on my shoulder. So.
Yeah. And what's so particular about Fred is that he actually goes to a lot of your construction sites. You're managing because the type of build that you build is so unique. And
I need to be there every day.
You need to be there every day. Yeah. So,
that's limiting in the sense that I couldn't do too many at once. But I mean, they need to be close.
Yeah.
If they're 15 minutes drive from my office, or 22 like it is to this, that's an easy range.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you're in Carmel, it's too far.
Yeah. But I've also seen you do some work even in Mexico too.
Yeah. What made for a lot of horrible long weekends to go down there.
I can imagine. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing to see, your work of, 50 years. Here we're kind of celebrating your 50 years of architectural brilliance. We're trying to bring in people to really see your creation and your work here, which is very unique. I think in time, just from Timeless, you can see how, things have evolved to the way you built and your major designs. It's so custom, yet so unique, and I really appreciate,
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. But any last words, where in terms of this property, and this is maybe one of your first, spec home you're building to sell, not for a client.
Well, I built a lot of houses for sale in the 70s.
Oh, okay.
And then in the 80s, I mostly built commercial buildings. With occasionally for the man who commissioned me to do the commercial building, I built a house for him too. House in Woodside, office building in Oakland, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then in the 90s, I went back to building custom houses around here. For a designer, houses are the cake. They're the best. They're the most interesting.
Yeah.
An office building, or most kinds of commercial buildings, have a lot of constraints, both financial and physical. Sure. I mean, if you got a basement garage, you got a known structural grid, and you're not going to go away from it and put the load over there.
Yeah.
So you're a lot more constrained when you're doing commercial work. It's from a business point of view, it's for a designer, it's the right place.
Yeah.
But from a designer's point of view, it's not. The right place are more modest scale stuff. You a lot more freedom.
Yeah. And with your commercial, I mean, you said that the commercial led you to build some. So those designs were kind of commissioned.
They came out of the residential, and then they also resulted in more residential.
Okay. So, but for this one, it seemed like you'd purchased this.
Oh, I did, yeah.
You were kind of like
planning on doing it. It had been a while, and I would do another one. That's right.
Yeah, and so I feel like this is kind of one of your first. Well, not
as a restart. Yes, it is.
Yeah, since the 1970s. So I mean, imagine being in a home like this and designed by this amazing architect Fred. I mean, I would think you've got to come down here to take a look at this home personally. To really experience, the vibrancy, the light, and also the space of this, and also the functionality of the home. I think it has some great functions.
Well, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, you have the flexible bedrooms upstairs. You can open it up, or have an office and a guest room space, and then you have the penthouse, the primary suite at the top, so it has some amazing views. Yeah. So yeah, what in terms of your future, I mean, what are you looking for in other types of?
Ever more commissions and ever more designs.
Yeah.
I'm interested in doing. There's the push for multiple dwellings is now great. So I'm looking at a couple of projects that would be multiple dwellings, varying in size from 6 or 8 units to 3 times that many.
Nice.
No really large ones. I mean, again, that's like the office building. They're likely to get boxed in. I'd love to design an apartment building that you and I would like to live in.
Nice.
Not one where we live in because we can afford that rent and not another.
Yeah. For ending, I just wanted to thank Fred here. I mean, I think in terms of his work and his years of in the industry and in architecture and building, really appreciate him coming here today. I see that all his works. You definitely come by to take a look at this property and all his works here. Really appreciate your time here, and
thank you.
We'll be able to meet the architect one of these days too. We can maybe set another time up.
That would be fine.
And if you need any work for him as far as custom builds,
you happen to own a lot and need an architect?
So I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching, and thanks for coming to this interview.
Thank you, Jeff.
And definitely we'll work on getting this property exposed more, and also to be able to get your exposure out as far as your rest of your work. We'd love to get people to take a look.
Yes, that's great.
All right, thank you so much.
From concept to reality.
Come experience this architectural masterpiece in person.